Let's book the next 5 years of Wes Lee's WWE career. This story starts on NXT in December of 2024. Trick Williams is the current NXT champion, and he defends his title against the dangerous Dijak. Trick manages to win the fight as he defeats Dijak, but after the match he is blindsided. After more than a year away due to injury, Wes Lee would return to NXT, taking out Dijak with a dropkick. Wes enters a battle royal the following week to determine a number one contender for the NXT title. Wes would last eliminate Dijak to win the match and to earn an opportunity against his ally Trick Williams at NXT New Year's Evil. At New Year's Evil, Wes Lee and Trick Williams would clash for the NXT Championship. Trick would try everything to keep Lee down, but he keeps kicking out. Wes has watched NXT from home for over a year, and he's not going to let this opportunity slip away from him. Trick would attempt some repeated clotheslines in the corner, but Wes would land a Pele kick out of nowhere to win the match, and the NXT Championship. Following New Year's Evil, Trick Williams would move on to the main roster, and Wes Lee would stay put on the gold brand as the NXT champion. Wes's first challenge would be Dijak, who was still upset about losing the number one contenders battle royal. Wes and Dijak would feud well into Wrestlemania season, and their match would finally take place at Stand and Deliver. Wes Lee would defend his NXT championship against Dijak. Defying the odds, Wes pins Dijak to win the match and to retain the title. Following Stand and Deliver, Wes would move on to a program with Carl Anderson. Anderson and Gallows would be a thorn in Wes's side as we head into the summer. At NXT Great American Bash, Wes would defend the NXT championship against Carl Anderson. Despite Luke Gallows interfering at ringside, Wes would manage to retain the title once again. Throughout the rest of the year, Wes would defend the title successfully against Luke Gallows, Axiom, and Drew Gulak. As the end of the year approaches, Wes would enter a program with Nathan Frazer, who was ascended through the NXT rankings in 2025. Frazer and Wes would clash at a special In Your House edition of NXT. In an awesome clash between two fast-paced cruiserweights, Wes Lee would drop the title to Frazer in a respectful encounter between the two. Wes would get his rematch just a few weeks later at the New Year's Evil PLE, as he battles Nathan Frazer in an attempt to regain his NXT title. Despite his efforts, Wes would fail to beat Frazer as he has his final match in NXT and says goodbye to the NXT fans. Wes would make his debut on the main roster just a couple of weeks later at the Royal Rumble, entering the match at the number 5 spot. Wes would have a strong showing in the match, but he would ultimately be eliminated by Bron Breakker. Following the Rumble, Wes would begin a tag team with Ricochet. At WrestleMania, Wes and Ricochet would participate in a fatal 4-way tag team match for the tag team titles against Pretty Deadly, DIY, and the Creed brothers. Ultimately, the heels in the match, Pretty Deadly, would walk out retaining the titles despite a strong showing from the new team of Ricochet and Wes Lee. In July of that year, Triple H would announce the Cruiserweight Classic 2.0 exactly 10 years after the original tournament. He would go on to state that the winner will become the new Cruiserweight champion and will defend the belt on Friday Night SmackDown. Both Wes Lee and Ricochet would enter the tournament, along with a host of former Cruiserweight Classic competitors, including Tommaso Ciampa, Johnny Gargano, Noam Dar, Akira Tozawa, Drew Gulak, Cedric Alexander, Cruz del Toro, and Giovanni Vinci. They would also be joined by 22 other competitors from around the world and from WWE, including Nathan Frazer and Axiom. Wes would progress through the tournament to the semi-finals, where he would be joined by Johnny Gargano, Nathan Frazer, and his current tag team partner, Ricochet. In semi-final number 1, Ricochet would defeat Johnny Gargano to move on to the tournament final. In semi-final 2, Wes would face Nathan Frazer, the man who beat Wes for the title in his final NXT match. After an awesome match between the two, Wes would defeat Frazer to progress to the final, where he will face his tag team partner, Ricochet. Wes and Ricochet would battle in the final of the tournament on September 13th, 2026. The two competitors would of course show respect to each other, but once the bell rang, it was an all-out war for the title. In the closing moments of the match, Wes would use Ricochet's own 630 senton to defeat Ricochet, winning the tournament and becoming the new Cruiserweight champion. Following the tournament, Ricochet would congratulate Wes on SmackDown, but in a shocking turn of events, Ricochet would blindside Wes, turning heel and ending their tag team for good. Ricochet would be Wes's first challenge for his new Cruiserweight title and would defend the belt at Survivor Series. Wes would win the match, but Ricochet would attack Wes after the match to continue the feud into 2027. The feud between Wes and Ricochet would continue well into the new year, and would culminate at WrestleMania 43, as Ricochet gets his final opportunity to win the title. In the closing moments of the match, Wes would land a spiral tap to win his first singles match at WrestleMania, to retain the title, and to end his feud with Ricochet. Following the Ricochet saga, Wes would go on to have an incredibly dominant reign as Cruiserweight champion. During the course of his reign, he would defend the title successfully against an array of different superstars, from Raw, SmackDown and NXT, including a match against Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa in a triple threat at Money in the Bank, and a match against his old rival Nathan Frazer at SummerSlam. Towards the end of the year, Wes would start a program with JD McDonough. JD would attack Wes on separate occasions, including an attack during a backstage segment. JD states that it's his mission to keep his now joint record as the longest reigning modern-day Cruiserweight champion, at 439 days. Wes would defend the title against JD on SmackDown on November 26, 2027, exactly 439 days since he won the title. If Wes wins the match, then he would be guaranteed to reach 440 days as champion. Wes would do just that, as he defeats JD to become the longest reigning Cruiserweight champion in the modern era. The next night at Survivor Series, Wes would defend his title against Drew Gulak, and would ultimately lose the title after an interference from JD, ending his reign at 440 days, but confirming his place in the record books as the longest reigning Cruiserweight champion. Wes would enter the 2028 Royal Rumble match. Despite not winning, he would put on a strong performance in the match, going as far as eliminating none other than Seth freaking Rollins, which Seth did not take too kindly. On the next episode of Raw, Seth would congratulate Wes for his Rumble performance and for eliminating him, but things would soon turn sour as Seth plants Wes with a pedigree, effectively turning heel in the process. The feud between Wes and Seth would intensify as Rollins would win the Intercontinental Championship as we head into WrestleMania 44. The two would clash at WrestleMania with the title on the line. Seth's experience would help him early in the match, but Wes would repeatedly catch Seth off guard. Seth would attempt a curb stomp, but Wes would dodge out of the way before rolling Seth up for a quick pin. Wes Lee is the new Intercontinental Champion, but it comes at a price as Seth would land a curb stomp on Wes after the match. Their feud for the IC title would continue all the way till SummerSlam, where Seth would ultimately get his win back. Wes would challenge Seth for the title in his rematch at the Hell in a Cell PLE, where he would defeat Seth cleanly for the title to win his second IC title. Wes would go on to defend the title for the remainder of 2028. As we roll into 2029, Wes would start a program with Carmelo Hayes for the IC title. Still an arrogant and untrustworthy heel, Carmelo would challenge for the belt at the Royal Rumble. Carmelo would ultimately win the match and the Intercontinental Championship. Wes would have his rematch on the following episode of Raw, but he would be unsuccessful via a DQ finish, after Carmelo attacked him with a kendo stick during the match. Wes would quietly fade away from WWE TV at this point to recover from some nagging injuries. As the Money in the Bank drew near, WWE would announce a mystery participant in the Money in the Bank ladder match, which would later be revealed to be Wes Lee. Wes would return to try and win the Money in the Bank briefcase, but also to exact revenge on Carmelo, who was also a participant in the match. Wes and Carmelo would fight at the top of the ladder, with both men fighting for the briefcase. Wes would get the ultimate payback by landing a neckbreaker from the top of the ladder, before ascending the ladder and winning the Money in the Bank contract. With the Money in the Bank briefcase in hand, and his destiny in question, Wes knows his time at the top is soon approaching. It's simply a matter of time.